All right, so I've seen you describe recently a silent crisis in the fitness industry. What do you mean by that? Welcome to Fitness and Thinking. What stood out for you? Would you say so?
I don't sit and reflect on, maybe how far I've come in my journey, but also the business, and I'm still growing it. And it's a lot of panic. Being able to sit and chat to you about it's been really lovely. And getting your input on it and being able to speak so openly. It's been like a little mini therapy session. I'm feeling very grateful. So thank you.
I appreciate it. It's, I think, personal, it's human, like it's broader than just mine or your experience. And yeah, I hope that even if it's just a person, if they can take something from it, then amazing. We'll put a trigger warning at the top, won't we, Soph?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, if it can just help one person, like that's what it's about. And again, it's not an easy space, but if it can be opened up that little bit more by more and more people like yourself hosting podcasts like this, and by people just speaking a little bit more freely, like the world will be a better place in the long run.
Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out Soph and her retreats on Instagram, and we'll get into it. All right, Soph. I've seen you describe recently a silent crisis in the fitness industry. What do you mean by that?
I think there's a few things there, to be honest, but I would probably be the first to hold my hands up and say I've been part of that silent crisis for quite a long time. I think as a female, particularly, but as somebody in the wellness industry, what we're seeing online isn't always what is happening behind closed doors. And I think there's a hell of a lot of unhealthy behaviors, disordered eating, and some real, when I say crisis, like people severely damaging their health at the expense of how they appear online. And I have been party to that and fallen into that trap. And I just think there's a real problem around it, in honesty.
Say that you've been a part of it. You say that you see it. How are people damaging their bodies? I think there are quite a few different roads we could go down. Where would you like to start?
I think it's around the fact that there's still so much shame behind it. And I think coming from a history of having an eating disorder, I can see if you sit me around a table, and I use women all the time when I talk about it because all of my work is around women. I could tell you in 30 seconds who's struggled with an eating disorder or has disordered eating habits, or who may be currently struggling, who has created weird food rules, who is doing, because I've been there, and truthfully I'm still in that in many of like the times that I spend with people. So that to me is where I feel like it's recognizing these behaviors, and we've excused them, or we've all got these certain rules around food. I actually met a woman who specializes in eating disorders. She came on a retreat, and she even said to me, she said, we've all got weird rules around food. We work in this industry. We're helping young girls recover from eating disorders, yet we won't eat carbs after 2 p.m. just because we've got into this routine, or we don't like certain foods in a certain way. And I just think from a health perspective, we've channeled this body positivity for a long time, but actually what's really happening is people's health is still being damaged by it. And I actually think it's potentially getting worse because of social media rather than better. What you see on social, and I know you and I have talked about this a lot, is not the full picture. It's never the full picture. Like I'm very open on my socials, and it's still not 100% of my life because we're all human. We don't want our entire life black and white on social. So even if you see snippets of it, it's just always half the story. And yet we're consuming it like it is legitimate, and our brains are wired to just take that information and believe it. And I think that's where it's coming from. And I think it's very, very hard to be 100% honest and raw and open. But if people aren't, like, I think it's going to continue to damage people's health so much more.
You are really open with it, and it's something that I appreciate. Just talking off camera before we rolled, your most recent post on the realities of traveling and coaching, and being tired and being drained and sad and anxious and excited and scared and all of these things. Like, you are really good at documenting that, and obviously we'll send people to your Instagram so they can keep up to date with you if they're not already. When it comes to your experience of disordered eating, though, for people who might be new to you, could you go into maybe what that looked like, what that felt like?
So I was 10 years old, still in primary school, and I developed quite bad anorexia at 10 years old. And that led to an eating disorder for most of my adult life. I would say from the age of 10 to 32, so that's 22 years. And I would be completely lying if I said I don't still have disordered eating. Like, it is such a trigger for me in my life when I am stressed, when there's a big change. It's something I can control. It's like the one element of my life that I can still control. And I don't believe you can't recover. Like, where I come from to where I am now, oh my God, like, it's a hell of a lot of therapy and a hell of a lot of work. But I personally, for me, and I don't, you can never speak for anyone else, I don't know if it really leaves you, because it's 22 years of my life. It's habits, it's traits, it's beliefs, it's everything. It's so much more than food and exercise. It's something that affects your mental state as well, that when your body and your nervous system is on edge or stressed, you just cling to it. It's like familiar. You don't even know you're doing it half the time. And a lot of what I work on in therapy now is recognizing those triggers. So rather than knowing it's happening or being aware of it, it's actually what's really going on. One of the biggest things my therapist asked me, she said, what's happening on the days that it appears that you need it? And that's really helped me, because it's never about the food or the way we look. It's in those scenarios, personally, it's about something that emotionally is going on, a trigger that's happened. Why do you need it those days? So yeah, it's been a hell of a lot of my life. It still continues to be. I try to be really, really open about it, because it's so easy to look and see, and you're in the industry as well, the amount of people that decide they need to comment on the way you look because you're a personal trainer, because of what you do, or in spite of what you do. And those comments, they don't leave you either. I remember working in gyms and people saying, well, you've got to look like that. You're a PT. Like, of course you have. Or, oh my God, you've got a great body. Why do we feel the need to comment at all? As if it's, but unfortunately it's a world that we're in.
Can I just ask maybe on the specifics of what needing it would feel like to you?
Yeah, I think that's one thing to say, like every single person with any form of, well, any mental, physical, illness, it differs. So from what I say, it won't be the same as somebody else. It won't be the same as yourself or anyone. But for me personally, it's a control, and it's been described as, it's a basic human need to eat. So when you deprive yourself of that need, it's like a real strength. It's like, I'm so strong and capable to be able to survive without this. It's like a hyper independence, which is another trait of mine. I love to be hyper independent. And it's like, it's a power thing, it's a control thing. And the rest of my life feels more in control. So that's when I say, when my life feels very chaotic, it becomes a familiarity, because there's a real strength in it. And there is a lot of strength in eating disorders and in disordered eating, because, like I say, it's a basic human need. You are either depriving your body of, or you're running in cycles, like people who do overeat and binge eat. There's so many forms. And I think that's another thing. We're so ashamed of it. We're so ashamed of it. We're all human. And that's when I say I could sit around a table and point different behaviors out, because most people have got something, not necessarily to do with food. It could be something else. We're all human, but yet there's a real shame around it. And actually, none of it really stems from where we believe. It comes from our past, our childhoods, our upbringings, our beliefs about ourselves, about the way we should be living our lives. And then that develops maybe into disordered eating. Maybe it comes up in other forms. But for me, it's definitely a control. It's around a real strength and independence that I've always felt I needed to kind of prove, which I still to this day I'm trying to prove through my work and through my business. But what I'm trying to do is also just show like the real like humanity behind it. And it's also why I think I really love spending so much time with my clients, because I literally just engulf them in a physical and, metaphorical hug and say, like, we are all just doing our best. Like, take a breath. I promise. I'm also just doing my best. You might think I've got everything together. Trust me, I don't. But actually that's fine. Like, don't worry about it. So yeah, for me, it's definitely, particularly when things feel very unstable and out of control in my life. And when you don't talk about, like, for me, this is the first time in the last 2 years I really opened up about it, and it suddenly stops becoming such a secret and just something you're trying to tackle, you're trying to talk about, and also hopefully help other people who maybe have been suffering in silence for a long time.
I think you brought up two really wonderful things there, but speaking as a guy with a guy group on WhatsApp and just reflecting on our chat, like, nothing gets spoken about in there other than football, darts, which I'm not fussed about. We don't discuss things like shame or guilt. And maybe in person, we could get a little bit closer to that. You know, if there's been like a few rounds bought and people are peeling off and you're shoulder to shoulder with your mates, you're still not looking at them, and you're maybe still not opening up like you might in a therapy setting and, you know, really letting go. But I think something that maybe the coaching space allows for, and I think sometimes what my experience of women with women does better than what guys do with each other, and, you know, we're talking straight guys mostly, is allowing for feelings of shame, allowing for feelings of guilt, and then asking, what does that mean? What does that mean to feel? What causes it? How did you get to a point of being able to open up? When did you recognize that it was an issue, and then how did you move forward with it?
I think definitely through therapy, but I also believe you've got to fully be ready to. I just woke up and was like, I need to be healthy, and that's going to only start by being more open to talking about this. Again, it's different for everybody, so it's hard to say. I just knew I didn't want to spend the next 22 years of my life battling what has basically controlled me for the last 22 years. And I'd love to say, oh, I'm fully in control and everything's fixed, as one for a better word. But now it's not really about that. It's understanding it more, understanding myself. Well, like you say, the shame, being willing to open up about it and not feel ashamed. And actually, that's where social media, I think, is really powerful and positive at times, because there's some people doing that very, very well. And it's part of the reason why, even though every bone in my body being vulnerable is like aching right now, and it always is whenever I post something vulnerable, it, to me, if one person, and sometimes I just get that odd message that goes, thank you so much for sharing this, it means so much to me, because I know when I was in that space and I would see somebody being able to be vulnerable and talk about it, I was like, I am not alone, thank God. There are so many people who are, and to just not feel that shame, if I can give that to somebody else, like that's why it's so important for me to talk about. But it came when I just wanted to be ready to do it, and it took a hell of a long time to get there. So I'd just say, if someone was in that space and they're considering it, to really try and urge them and to look at the right places, because there are people doing it really well on social. There are people that are sharing things like that really openly and vulnerably, and they're the people that are helping people like me get to that next stage. So yeah, that's kind, but again, everyone's different. Everyone's different in how they talk about it.
I think it's a nice notion that you could find somebody who is further along the path than you, because we're all figuring it out. But, you know, I would recommend anybody watching this who may be feeling what we're describing to check out your stuff. Who are the people that you check out? Like, who do you see as further ahead of you?
I'm not, you know, someone asked me that. It's a really interesting question. Someone asked me, yeah, like, who are your, I don't know if it's ignorant or it's protection, that like, who are your idols, or who do you follow in the wellness world? And I'm very mindful not to fixate on individuals, and more just content that kind of resonates. So it's hard to say, yeah, but that would be one thing I would say is, yeah, seeing people who are a bit further along, that's really helpful. It's like, God, I could get there. That's really nice. But then for some people, that's really triggering, because it's like, I'm so far from that. I'll never be able to do X, Y, Z. For me, it's about understanding that you can be a totally normal human being and live a totally normal life, and normal, I mean, what's normal? You know, fully functioning in this adult world, and yet under the surface have so much going on. But probably that's 95% of adults, and it's whether that's disordered eating, or they've got stuff going on at home, or they've got their own battles with whatever it is. And also take it all with a pinch of salt, because even then, like I say, I will share very openly and vulnerably, but yeah, it's still, I keep a tiny portion of my life private, because you think I'd lose my mind if I didn't.
I completely get what you're saying when it comes to specific accounts. And I think it's important to not pin your hopes for your personality or your aesthetic even on what somebody else looks like. Because in order to look like them, or maybe have a life like theirs, you would have had to have gone through everything that they've done or been through. And also potentially had their parents, you know, so there are a couple of things that are maybe insurmountable, and you're better off not worrying about it and just working on what you can work on and enjoying what you enjoy. And as you say, maybe working towards where you want to be. I wonder, given that we are both in the coaching space, and I've seen this come up on, there's a YouTuber called Joe Fazer, who had an interesting video where he pitched two PTs at the opposite end of the aesthetic spectrum, we might say, against each other. And obviously this makes for content that people will want to watch, and it was very deliberate, but I don't think it was necessarily unfair as a piece to make. It brought up a question, though, that I think the industry is riddled with and sometimes can't overcome. Do you think, based on your experience and what we're describing now, that PTs do need to look a certain way? Now, I can preempt a very binary answer from you, but if we can try and dig into why people think or feel that, I think that would be more interesting. So I know, working in Pure Gym in Sheffield City Centre, that there are PTs of every shape and size, and everybody is qualified. I think that's the important bit to start from. Everybody has worked towards at least their level 3 PT qualification, and that takes an amount of time. And everybody that I knew in there had at least 5 clients. So they were paid for their advice, for their time, to help other people get to where maybe they want to go. I think if you're at that level, then you are qualified to be a PT. But from that point on, when we think about, do PTs need to look a certain way, how do you think we can fairly answer this question?
I think it is one of the hardest questions in the industry. The first thing that jumps to my mind then, if you were to need surgery, like really urgent surgery, and people laid out and said to you, these are the top 5 doctors that could do this for you, your first question would not be, what do those doctors look like? You would want to know how many lives they've saved, how good their surgery. That is literally what you'd want to know. And that's what baffles me, because that PT could be so dedicated, by the way, that they are hiding a ton of unhealthy behaviors, like I was for years, like so dedicated that people look at you and go, what a great body you've got, by all the wrong methods, by damaging your health. But people are going to be like, well, they can look like that, so they can make me look like that. And they're not. That's like me saying, well, they can do open heart surgery, so then I can do open heart surgery. And but what I still know is that, even though, and I will say it, I would gravitate towards a PT. And this is really hard for me to even say out loud, as a PT who was so determined to change the way people see and how we are viewed. You'd gravitate towards ones that were maybe looking a little bit more like they look after themselves, even though it's completely irrelevant of how well they look after themselves versus how well they can get you the results that you need. Yeah. And that's a big problem. That's a big, big problem. And I don't know if it really stems necessarily from the belief that people will look at them and say, well, if they look like that, they can make me look like that. I think we just still have these learned behaviors that smaller is better, that more toned is more attractive, more visible abs are a quality that we should admire. And that's just come from this constant media that we've been fed for years and years and years. I actually don't know how much, if we to take a step back and logically with our brains go, that's actually really irrelevant of what they look like. It's this same thing with eating disorders, learned behaviors that when I was in the absolute height of, when I've been at my very, very slimmest, one half of me looked at myself in the mirror and just think, I look so ill, but the other half of me could not step away from it. Like, we're in this, smaller still better. I feel less ashamed if I'm not bigger. It's like constantly been drilled into us for so many years that we've maybe not thought, like, hang on, what's happening here? What are the real emotional triggers for us here that are making us believe that PTs that are in better shape are going to be better at their jobs? Because it's quite frankly so irrelevant.
Great analogy.
The one thing that again, it happened on one of my retreats not long ago. It kind of, I have these like epiphanies. It depends how much sleep I've had and how sort of nostalgic I'm feeling. But I had a bit of an epiphany with one of the women who was chatting on my retreats. And what I love is every time I go, my friends and my family, they're like, oh, how is it? How's this one? What are the group like? The first thing everyone wants to know when I'm there. And I always share that really openly with my group. I'm like, oh, everyone's asking. They're like, well, you're obviously telling them we're the best group, right? Like, I'm like, every time, best group. But the one thing people ask me is, what are the group like? Who are they? What do the women do? And I love that question, because I'm not getting messages from my family and friends being like, what do the group look like? What a weird question that would be. Yet we still put so much on it, but no one's asking me, send me a picture of what they all look like. They're just like, what are they like? What do they do? What are their jobs? What are their interests? What are their hobbies? What are they like as people? And that's something I found without realizing. I was like, oh my God, that's actually amazing. Like, I literally don't think twice about what people look like. That, come on, it's just so irrelevant, but it's a nice feeling. It's the questions you want to be asked in the right space, right? Whereas, I mean, I could go into it, but someone's got a new girlfriend or boyfriend, you're going to get asked, what do they, have you got a picture of them? What do they look like? And it is true. That's what we ask. We want to see it. And we're all guilty of it. You would ask, you'd say, oh, what are they like? Tell me about them. What do they do? But they'd be like, oh, have you got a photo? And if you want to you do want to put a picture to someone's personality. I do get that. I'm not, but we're just, it's been so heavily ingrained in us for so long. I think sometimes we don't even know we're doing it. We don't even know we're doing it.
So rather than go for what does your typical retreat client look like, who is your typical retreat client? Who goes on your retreats?
Well, in both answers to that question is there is not a one size fits all in terms of looks and abilities and ages, and that's the best thing. Like most of my clients, so it's all women's retreats at the moment, unless my corporate ones, which are obviously mixed. But women between 30 and 60, there's a real, I mean, probably 25 to 65, if I'm being honest. But my core kind of demographic or people that tend to come are probably between 35, 45. Mm-hmm. However, I have so many women say to me, God, I'm going to be the oldest. I'm so worried. And they come, and I've had 65-year-olds leave very good friends with 25-year-olds, and everyone keeps in touch. And we built this really lovely community because it really does not matter. Mm-hmm. And that's the best part. I never realized how much it would give me. I started it to give people so much. I wanted to give these women something that I just didn't feel I ever got, which was just this complete safe space to come and be 100% yourself, no judgment. And in doing that, they gave me that back. And it's actually, I don't know if it's the lack of sleep, it makes me really, really emotional talking about it. Because I don't think these women who I've built this wonderful community with now, who have become like friends, who check in on me, who I don't think they fully understand how much they've given me back in terms of when I started out to give them something. That's been a really lovely life.
Did you know that each episode of Fitness and Thinking takes about 10 hours to put together, and yet hundreds of hours have been consumed by you lot already across Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube? Now, just using the kit that you see here, wherever I am in the world, it is a treat to put these episodes together. If you've enjoyed them, if you have found yourself watching multiple of them, then I've got a favour to ask of you. And it's not your money. It is just a second to like what you like. Maybe a couple of seconds to leave a comment on what you enjoyed, what you changed, what you might have asked the guests, and maybe to ask me to bring on somebody or to discuss a topic that you're interested in. The last thing is to subscribe if you haven't already. Most people will watch an episode, maybe watch a couple in a row, but not subscribe. And yet that could be a massive sign to all those algorithms that you are interested in what Fitness and Thinking is all about. So that's it. You don't need to send any money my way. I'm not asking for a cent or penny or peso from you. It is just to let me know that what we're doing is worthwhile.
How did your retreats come about is one question. And I think another that I would like to get into is, why do you think they're important? The word retreat, I think, could do with a little bit of digging into, if you're game for that.
Yeah. So I'll start with the how they came about, and then I'll kind of give you a bit of an understanding of what they are really. I qualified as a PT. I had a really difficult relationship with exercise when I was younger. I was really ashamed of my physique, my body, my fitness. I came home so many times sobbing, just felt so uncomfortable in my body, never felt fit. My sister was super sporty and athletic. I just really didn't like who I was when I was younger, and that in a lot of senses. And that I think a lot of people can resonate, but they don't like it's really hard to admit. And then I found CrossFit when I went to university, and that gave me the first thing that actually, before CrossFit was CrossFit, it was like this warehouse. It was like 18 years ago. it was just any shape, size of person could turn up and work out. And I was like, God, I really like this. And then it was like I was allowed to enjoy movement despite how I looked or how I felt about myself. And then I started to have a better relationship with exercise, just realizing that, you know, you can kind of enjoy it. And then I wanted to give that back because I just knew how hard it felt in like that space when I was growing up. And I just wanted women to not feel, I would have just given anything for people not to feel like that. Like, that's all I wanted to do. Then I started to get a bit of a love for the outdoors. My dad's always been into climbing and hiking. And that was a challenging relationship when I was younger because he loved all that and I hated it. And now we go climbing and hiking together, which is obviously ironic. And I was like, I just feel like there's more I can do here than just be in a gym and help women and men move a certain way. So I just decided I wanted to host a retreat. And I basically did. I just put the blinkers on. I'm very impulsive as a person, but I'm also a big overthinker, kind of a strange balance. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to host a retreat and see what happens. And from the moment I decided to, I did not sleep. The panic, the anxiety, so many things went wrong in the lead up to it. And I hosted my first one. I had a corporate job at the time. So it was like a bit of a side hustle. Wasn't even to make money. It was just to do something I loved. Yet I would say that I put more pressure on than any of the others I've ever hosted because it was the first one, and that judgment, that fear, what if people don't come? What if they don't like it? What if I'm terrible at what I do? What if all of the self-doubt? But I still did it anyway because I was like, this is where I want to be. And then it just grew from there. I honestly just went for, and it wasn't easy. It's still not easy. Every time I put a new location or date out, it's like the panic sets in again, but you get more used to the panic and you get more used to being okay with things going wrong and making mistakes, not judging yourself for them, and for trying things and maybe they don't work and you try something else. Like, you become quite resilient in it, but there's still a lot of panic that goes on behind a lot.
I understand from an organizational perspective, will people show up? Will I have enough people? Will I be able to pay for it? Any event manager listening to this will relate to that, I imagine. But what could go wrong on a retreat that maybe we're not aware of?
Well, I was in the Dolomites 2 months ago, and I managed to fracture my ankle halfway up a mountain with all of my clients. So that could go wrong. That was a test, definitely. Yeah, weirdly, again, as more go on logistics wise, you kind of adapt. You get a bit more. The panic is people's flights get missed. People can't physically get to a location. I don't know, book something and then you get there and it all falls apart and you have to, but I don't know, the more you do, the more you know you can adapt. I think the day-to-day is really that. It's that, like, this is now my full livelihood. Oh God. Like, that's just, that's how to describe it. Yeah. What I get out of it is, and also actually that's one of the biggest fears is making sure these women get everything I want them to get out of it. What if somebody doesn't like it? And that's not on me in terms of like, oh God, what if they don't like me in the retreat? I mean, God, what if they don't get everything they hope for out of this? What if it wasn't everything they needed? Like, that's, I put a lot of pressure on that because I really, really want them to get that.
What do you want them to get out of it, Soph?
I wanted people to find a way to escape the like constant noise, whether that's work noise, home life, any noise that we just have day to day, socials, things like that, and find a place where they can just come and be 100% themselves with a group of people. Often these women are in friendship groups that are all at different stages of their lives. Maybe they've got kids, maybe they haven't got friends that like doing the same things, and the thought of going alone is not an option. So it's, how can I go and, or maybe people that haven't found that adult friendship group as well, and wanting people to just leave feeling a little bit more positive, a little bit lighter, and a little bit like they've been able to enjoy something that they maybe once didn't think they could. And actually hearing what people say back has made me shift in also what I want people to get out of it. Because yeah, some people have taken a lot more than I ever realized they would, and myself included, which again, it's a really hard thing to kind of quantify. They don't run on this perfect schedule. We always laugh because my clients are like, so is it 7 p.m. Soph time, or is it like 7 p.m. hard 7 p.m. time? I'm like, it's always Soph time. I'm always the one that's running late. No, I organize it all. It's kind of like, come, bring all your chaos, bring all your mess, and just breathe, enjoy. it's a holiday, basically. Like, that's what they are. They're not this big, like, fitness boot camp wellness. And a lot of them are centered around hiking, because that's where I find you get a lot of headspace out in the mountains. I've always found that. But it is just allowing yourself some space to do something that makes you feel good. We all know nature, eating, moving well makes you feel good. But also, yeah, just be in an environment where you suddenly go, oh, okay, there are so many other people like me out here. Because you do end up finding similar sorts of women, even though from all different walks of life and different stages of life, come onto the retreats together, and you just suddenly don't feel so alone with whether it's your problems or how you feel as a person, or how you feel about your body or exercise or just life in general. And I think there's that real community feeling that I didn't realize people would get so much from it. And that's been really nice, really, really nice.
There is so much in this, and I think I can relate to the experience because I was invited to a retreat in Puglia, and it was yoga, it was forest bathing, and it was good food, like really lovely food and wine. And it was amazing from the experience that you're describing of people from different backgrounds. I became mates with people who I didn't expect to. You know, for a good 2 years after that retreat, I was still texting people who live in Cornwall, and they invited me down to stay with them. And I had friends in Cornwall, and we connected on a level that was to do with walking and to do with music. And like, we didn't go to the same school. We didn't have mutual friends. There would have been no way that we would have met each other outside of, you know, maybe something like a friendship app or a dating app. This is real world. You're thrown into a mixer, and there were older women, younger women, me in the middle, and I was there to support my friend. I helped her with a website. She suggested that I might enjoy this time out in Italy. Like, you're not going to turn Italy down.
Yeah.
And what it became was this real sense of peace and calm with strangers that I couldn't possibly have gotten from my friendship group. For that experience of, I'm not alone, and I am in the world, and it is all right for me to be the only guy on a retreat. Allow it all and learn. And yeah, it was wonderful. And I think for you to have that as your job and to see that and enable it, just based on my experience of being in it, sounds like it could be amazing, as much as the stress and the admin and the logistics of it. Like, would you do anything else?
I'm very creative. So I have I like a few creative projects that I have, but no, it feels, my family are in a hospitality background, so that helps. And I just feel like, for me, there's something really, so you touched on it then when you said about being in an environment that isn't with your friends, that it's outside your friendship group. And my friends are like, I adore them. Like, the emotional safety I get from my friends is just phenomenal. But that is something I feel they bring, is that emotional safety to be, because you walk into that room or that retreat or wherever it is, and nobody has a prejudice about you at all. No one knows you. You could be absolutely anyone. And I think a lot of people change a lot through their adult lives, and they're ashamed or afraid, or they don't really know. They might just feel a bit lost at times. And we all change at different points. And if you're not changing at the same time as one of your friends, or they're going through a different phase of life than you, or you're feeling really emotionally unsafe because of something that they have no idea about, you can take that somewhere that isn't going to impact your friendship negatively, because they're probably dealing with their own stuff as well. And you can take that to another environment that makes you feel comfortable and you feel safe, probably while benefiting that friendship group or friends or partner or relationship better, because you're not putting everything on that one person or however many people, and just be able to have that space to do it with people who are probably in a similar stage of their life in terms of feeling, not necessarily physically, and just literally breathe. And that, I think, is exactly what you just described, like, to go into that with no prejudice, no idea of what you're going to get out of it, and not need to. You're not trying to. That's the point. You're just going to be in a space to be yourself. I think it's so important and so invaluable. Like you say, you can't really explain that feeling, but I felt it back from what I've seen the women bring to mind. So no, I don't think I would do anything else. I really, really wholeheartedly love what I do, but that's always the next thing. I'm always thinking, like, what can I do in business next? You know, we've got to still make a living, but I want to really enjoy it. I don't want to spend all of my life on the road. I don't want to travel 24/7. So how do I then make that happen in a different sense? But for now, And I'm very much a live in the moment kind of person. They're very impulsive, as I said. It's exactly where I want to be. And I really love doing it.
It's such a treat to hear when people land close to, if not in the thing that they want to do. And it does feel like it's properly aligned with what I know about you as a person and what you bring and what you give. And I think that on a personable level, you go where you do these retreats and then you've got something to give back to the people that are in your life who aren't on the retreat. You've touched on something massive there. So this is going to come from a single guy, but I think it's one of the best nuggets of relationship advice that I can give. And I stand by it despite my status. If you don't have something going on outside of your relationship, I don't think your relationship is going to be as healthy as it could be.
No, I completely couldn't agree more in terms of having your own thing. And I think it's also terrifying. Like, you can be surrounded by people, but you can still feel lonely. I think that's a big thing in life. And I've always had a bit of a fear of being lonely or being alone, always. And I always did growing up, and I'd always have friends, I'd always have relationships. I've never been alone, but I think that's the difference is people assume then you can't be lonely. And I think to work on yourself and to go and do things on your own, it is one of the best things you can do for the other people in your life. Like you say, whether it's a partner or whether it's friends, or whether it's family. And I always say to people, because one of the biggest questions people ask me is like, God, I'm a bit nervous coming on my own. And I always say something like, but I'm also on my own. I said, I not only am I on my own, I'm making sure that you're all right on your own. I said, everyone is nervous. I said, I'm nervous. I'd be lying. Every time I wait for my group, like literally that first day, always nervous. Always. No matter how many times I've done it, even if I know some of the people coming, because a lot of them are repeat clients, of course I'm nervous. Like, it would be so strange of me not to be. But there's just such a real, like, you see the shift in people just starting to settle and breathe into that weekend or week. And I don't mean like literally through like yoga meditation. I mean literally just like you see the energy of them like just relax a little bit more. And we don't stop and allow ourselves to do that very often, particularly because if you're like me, I like to keep as busy as possible, so then I can distract myself from all these things. So actually being put into an environment where you can't just distract yourself from those things and actually just sit with being on your own for a little bit is so healthy, like you say, to take back just for yourself, but particularly if you've got a relationship where you're with somebody all the time and there's a real codependency in a lot of places that we've just again believed we need to have. But actually, if you can have your own thing, it's only going to make your relationship stronger, I believe, as well. But again, I see couples doing things 24/7 together. They've got the same interests, but usually they've got their own little snippets of life as well. So there isn't, I mean, gosh, we could chat all day about relationship psychology. There's a hell of a lot more around that as well. But I think that's what's so nice about it is it's to give them something, but that then just strengthens other areas of their life as well. So I think, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
A recent experience I've been on the road for 6 weeks, just traveling by myself. It's not necessarily a retreat in the sense of I didn't turn my phone off. This wasn't like a Buddhist or ascetic monk thing. I just went to change my environment. But on the trip, my friends, my family commenting that I looked healthier, looked happier. And I think the only difference was maybe the sunshine. I wasn't eating better necessarily because, other people were cooking for me. I couldn't control the foods. Lots of oils and fats and all these things that aren't good for us. But I think changing the environment, changing my inputs, changed my outputs, and because I couldn't rely on the same heuristics, shorthands, routines, mechanisms that get me through a day in Sheffield, my life and output changed, So I went from eating 3 square meals and a protein shake to maybe having 2 tacos, 2 very potent energy drinks, a quesadilla in the afternoon, and then getting to bed at 11, half 11. Maybe it would end up being 2 a.m. because somebody's turned the big light on in the hostel room. And then I have to wake up at 5:30 because the sun's out. All of this non-normal and break from routine actually made me excited for the routine, but also at the same time had an effect of I was different, because I was exposed to new things, new people, new language, new foods. I became more myself, a different version, whatever it is that it was. I liked how I felt, and people could tell. People commented, I think, on the essential bit of it. I think they noticed a change that was positive, that maybe, and it's sad for me to admit in a way, they didn't get access to when I was just doing Monday to Sunday, 9 to 5, whatever it was, the routine. Routine and structure is great, but when you mix it up, and maybe you mix it up with something organized like a retreat, or something short like a holiday, or a cooking class outside of your house. But those moments where you break the pattern, I think invaluable. And going into it alone, I think I need to do that in order to feel balanced and sane, and to trust that I can meet people, and to trust that I'll be okay in a conversation. And if I'm not, there's a million other people for me to talk to.
Exactly that. It's a bit of a fear-facing thing, and I love that point you made of like, and trust I'll be okay, but also trust that even if something doesn't go right, you still will be okay. Like, to be able to have that point of like, I've got me, because we think, God, will I be all right if, a lot of people have fears that, will I be all right if this person leaves me, or will I be all right if my friends fall out with me, or will I be all right if something happens to my family? And the point is, if you know you've got yourself, you will always be all right. You will always be okay. Will it be brutal? Will it be hard? Whatever the outcome of a certain situation is, yes. Will we grieve? Will we be sad? Whatever happens, will I be okay if I've got myself? And I think if you can find that wholehearted belief, whether it's through a retreat, like you say, or solo travel, or something like you say, stepping outside your house to go to a different class, or meeting I've seen people just get so much out of new gyms and environments of work, going and having a small personal training group they look forward to going every week. And if you can get something like that, it can literally change your life tenfold. And I think people underestimate that the small things really are the big things. Like, they are huge. The bit I really liked that you just said about people commenting about how you look happier and healthier. For me, they're the same. People think to physically look healthier, you need to look different aesthetically. So, oh, you look healthier, you've got your skin's glowing more, or you've lost weight, and again, isn't that funny how I went straight to lost weight? Maybe putting weight on is a healthier thing. But it's not an aesthetic thing, because to me, if you look happier, that's health. Like, really wholehearted nervous system regulation happy feels like health to me. And I think actually people saying you look healthier is probably very true. If you are happier, that to me is a big indicator of your health. Often people who aren't very happy don't look particularly healthy, wherever that means. And I think that's where we could really change a shift in like what health also looks like, because it's so linked to mentally how you're feeling as well.
What do you wish that people asked more based on your experience, maybe leading retreats or coaching people?
I wish people, I hope that from this and through other, podcasts, social media, there's so much material out there. I just hope people find their voice to ask the questions, or to, maybe there's not even questions, maybe to just say the thing they're really thinking, or to voice the thing that's we're all built in a similar way, even though we're all completely unique and individual. So if you're having some crazy thought, or if you're having a struggle with something, I absolutely wholeheartedly guarantee there is at least one, if not a million other people on this planet that are having the same thing. And I think if people can put the fear, the shame, the guilt, all the things that we have literally inherently just picked up through our lives aside, and can just be a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more themselves, a little bit more compassionate with other people, I just think people could make so much more progress with themselves, because the fear and the shame, I think, hold us back so much in so many walks of life. A bit like you saying you just went on that trip, like, God, what if I talk to someone and they don't like me? What if the conversation goes badly? What if this doesn't work? It's like, so what? Like, so what? Do it anyway, because there'll be so many other opportunities and things that can go right. So we fixate on the things that might go wrong, and often they don't go as bad as we think. Yeah.
100%. Soph, really appreciate you for making the time. Where would you like to send people from here?
I've got a couple of places. My website, which has all of my upcoming retreats on, my Revert Fitness Instagram, which has basically just become my life. It's just I do a life diaries on there. It shows a lot of vulnerability of just the background of all the lovely travel and the amazing things on the surface, but also the reality behind it all. That's like me. If you want to get to know me, Revert Fitness, my retreats, I've got an Instagram for, and then my website. So yeah, any of those places. And hopefully we can just have a place to share stuff as well. Like, I always say to anyone, like, reach out if there's anything. I always love to help and talk and chat any problem over with anybody, because like I said, I've probably been thinking the same thing anyway.
Hey, cheers for making it to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed that one, I think you might like this one. And why not subscribe if you haven't already, so you never miss an episode again.